What's up, everybody? It's Scotty here with Flat Track Flashback. And, it's been probably close to a month since I've gotten to do one of these videos. I knew it was going to be difficult finding a window to get back on here and dedicate time to one of these videos. There's been a lot of exciting things happening in my life personally and just stuff that's been taking up time and requiring a little more attention. But I wanted to hop on here and just kind of catch up and fill you in on sort of some of those events that have been going on and what to kind of expect out of this channel going forward. I guess I picked the right time to take a few weeks off. It's not like anything's really been happening. I guess there hasn't been a whole lot of news, right? Obviously kidding. Of course, Sturgis gave us a lot of headlines going into it and now coming out of it. Before I go into any of that, I need to give a huge shout out to Colby Carlisle. It's been an honor to kickstart the Sideways podcast with him. Colby reached out to me earlier this year about starting this and just, trying to get schedules aligned and just the way life happens. We never really got to kick it off, but a couple weeks ago, we were able to get that going, and I appreciate the feedback. Thank you guys for checking that out. Thank you all for supporting that. With that being said, I'm going to be scaling back significantly on this channel so that I can dedicate more time to working with Colby on that project. So probably not going to have as much coming out of this platform as I have in the past. Not going to go away completely, so maybe get a video or two here each month, but it's not going to be as consistent as I tried to make it earlier in the year. I also need to thank Colby because this has been a weird year. I've always been able to just be a fan of flat track racing and never really dive into sort of talking about it and providing opinions on it. And this year has just presented a lot of awkwardness to it. We started off so strong in Daytona, but then it's felt like we've been going through these really like weird waves, and it's been quite a tumultuous year. It's been a little difficult to talk about, and as someone who's not at the track every week and doesn't have maybe the best pulse on it, and just being a fan from home, it's just proved a little difficult to sort of get up and get passionate about making these videos and giving you guys stuff that you deserve to see. Colby's really reignited that fire and desire to talk about this and to continue to be sort of a presence in the sport. And Colby is someone I can learn a lot from. He's a amazing mind and so well spoken. I think he would slide in very well in a broadcasting role if that ever comes up for Colby in the future. But I'm excited to get this off and running with him. And we've got a couple episodes under the belt so far, and hopefully we can continue burning laps on that podcast. So yeah, coming out of Sturgis, I'll admit I was not a fan of the TT idea. I believe I said I hated the idea at one point. And while I still don't think it's the best representation of flat track racing to be aired on a national network like Fox, I was pleasantly surprised with how much I found myself enjoying the racing that day on the TT in the streets of Sturgis. A lot of variables were thrown their way with the massive amount of rain that they had, but they really they pulled off a pretty solid event. I think overall the racing was a lot better than I expected, and I was a fan of Supermoto when it came to the States again, and like 2003, those were really exciting events. I got to go to South Boston, Virginia, and watch a race that they put on at that track, and that was awesome because Rusty Rogers was absolutely sending it into 1 and 2 on his Yamaha there in South Boston that night. And while he struggled a little bit in the infield section when it got more tight and one lined, and sort of the motocross guys were able to excel on that standpoint, seeing him open it up on that on the high bank half mile there in South Boston was super cool. I believe Doug Chandler ended up winning that race when we were there that day. So it was a fun experience, and I guess I just kind of had to get my mind right and say, this is going to be Supermoto. You enjoyed it, so just try to sit back and make the most of it. They put on a pretty entertaining event, and glad to see everybody is out of there, and we move on to Springfield here this weekend coming up. So the series definitely had some storylines coming out of that. Of course, the rules package has recently come out, and full disclosure, I'm not a techie person. I've never worked on a motorcycle in my life. About the only thing I know how to do on a car even is change the tire and put gas in it. Maybe a few extra things here and there that I could find my way through, but I've certainly never been any sort of mechanic. So I'm not going to really speak too much on the rules other than just sort of what I've seen so far, because that's not really my lane. If you want to know about what Holly Humberstone song to listen to, I got you, because it's about the only thing that's been going through these years lately. I can help you there, but I can't really help you with deep dives on the rules package. One thing that is of obvious note, we know that the Indian FTR is no longer going to be in flat track racing. 7 championships, maybe 8, depending on what happens in these next 3 rounds, over 100 wins on that bike. It's been the most dominant force in the sport since coming on in 2017. And they have had amazing riders to start that campaign. And then just pretty much everybody who was going to be winning races seemed to, migrate to that bike. And, in recent years, we've seen Breyer win on KTMs. We've seen Dallas and JD pick up wins on the Yamahas as well. So we'll see what is ahead for the sport. I do think it's good to have production motors. My fear is that it's going to handicap some of these Super Twins teams early on, and that next year could be really light on the Twins grid. I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like next year being sort of this transition year for that class, it's going to be a little light on the grid, and maybe year 2 and 3 into this package, we start seeing more growth as teams have time to sort of assess the cost and the risk versus reward of being an American Flat Track Super Twins team. So we'll see how that pans out. The other thing that kind of stuck out to me is that traction control is not completely gone, although it seems like it's not going to maybe play as much of a factor from what I understand. I just wish traction control didn't exist in dirt track racing. Personally, I wish we didn't have it at all in this form of motorsports. I feel like maybe I'm getting old, maybe I'm an old timer, but that your throttle control is in your right wrist. And so when you twist that throttle, that's your traction control, not the machinery and the technology that's in these bikes. It's 2024, so everything's advancing. And maybe it's just too difficult to completely do away with it on these machines if you want to, stay modern. But I do wish that we could find a way to just completely do away with traction control altogether. What that looks like, I don't know. But yeah, that's all I'm really going to talk about with the rules package. Colby and I touch on it a little bit on the Sideways podcast, and I know there's going to be more sharper minds who are going to dive into that as well, and we'll just see how it affects the sport. We've got 3 more rounds in the 2024 Progressive American Flat Track season, and so I'm going to look ahead to those. That's sort of what I've enjoyed most about these videos, is sort of providing previews and looking at trends and how the riders are stacking up as they come into the next set of rounds here. All right, so we've got title races across the world tightening up. MotoGP between Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin. That battle has been insane. Speedway Grand Prix was in Britain recently. That race 1-2 for the British fans there. Their championship is tightening up. And Speedway GP has been a phenomenal watch over the past few years. Bartosz Marszalek is a treat to watch on a Speedway bike, just absolutely ripping on those things. If you get a chance to check out Speedway GP, please do so. And it looked like our Super Twins and singles championships were going to be almost, decided coming into these last few rounds, or at least guys have at least one hand on the trophy. But then the plot twist after the Sturgis TT, Jared Mees gets disqualified for endangering a rider when he had that collision with Brandon Price and run over afterwards. So Mees gets DQ'd from a Sturgis TT, a race that he was not really stoked about being at anyway. And it adds quite a layer of drama to the Super Twins class, because now we've had the points leaders, one suffer a potentially season-ending injury. We don't know if Dallas is going to be able to make it back from his broken femur. And now Jared's had a bit of a curveball thrown his way when it looked like he was poised to just kind of take the reins and come home with that record-breaking 10th championship. So as we head into Springfield, the top 3 riders are only separated by 12 points. So Jared holds that 6-point lead over Brandon Robinson, and then double that up to Breyer Bauman back. He's only 12 points back in 3rd place. And coming into Springfield, Jared's promoting it, and Jared has been the guy at Springfield over the past few years. Since hopping on that Indian, he's never finished worse than 2nd. So in all of his starts, he's either won or come home in a runner-up spot there at Springfield. And last year he went 1-2, winning the opening day and coming home 2nd for Breyer Bauman. Mees was coming off of 2 podiums. He got 3rd at Peoria, 2nd in Rapid City. Would have had a solid salvage job in the Sturgis TT before the DQ. So we'll see. I think Jared's still got to be the favorite to win there. He's won 6 of the 9 miles since 2022 when these restrictions came into place. And even before that, he was, a force to be reckoned with on these miles. He won DuQuoin pretty convincingly earlier this year. The margin of victory wasn't massive, but Jared was able to squeak out and really control that race from the front, never coming under much attack there. Again, never worse than 2nd on a mile over the past 3 years. So coming into these 2 rounds, these guys are going to have to find a way to get up there and get ahead of him if they want to bring this championship down to Ozark. If Jared sweeps this weekend, it's going to make it pretty difficult on Brandon and Breyer to take the reins from him. Jared would probably need a mechanical malfunction, or I guess somebody making an official ruling they don't like. to take this title away. Jared's going to be coming in fired up, especially after that DQ. He's going to have a point to prove, and boys better watch out for when that number 1 lines up there on the Springfield Mile over the weekend. Looking at the rider running second in points, Brandon Robinson having an amazing year. Brandon still being in the titles chase here at the end of the year. We talked about if he can stay healthy, he could definitely be a force. And Brandon was so good earlier in the year, and then had that hiccup at DuQuoin. He rebounds with his career best on a 20 at Peoria, gets a top 5 there, is up in the mix early on at Rapid City, even led a lap there before dropping off from Jared and JD as they were able to check out. But Brandon's able to salvage a podium there after he was kind of just there earlier in the day. Didn't seem like he was going to be a real contender, but really showed up in the main event. Got through the TT. It's interesting, of these top 3 guys in the points, of the last 3 rounds, each of them have had, an issue with Jared's DQ and then Robinson not having a great running at Sturgis TT, and then we'll get to Breyer where he didn't have the best day at Rapid City. But Brandon's been solid at Springfield in the past. He's had one bad mile finish each year of the last 3 years. In 2022 and 2023, he finished in the backside of the top 10, and those came at the red mile. This year, maybe he's gotten that poor, or that, I guess, subpar, not really poor finish, that subpar finish out of the way at DuQuoin. He's been in the top 5 every other time on the miles dating back to 2022, but that average finish of 5.44 just isn't going to cut it when you've got Jared finishing first or second every race. So Brandon's going to have to elevate another step up on the podium. He was on the podium the opening day of Springfield last year, but he's going to have to find a way to get in front of that number 1 and that number 3. His last mile win came in OKC in 2021. Now, if Brandon's able to come out of here within striking distance of Jared going into Ozark in that finale, I think it could be very, very spicy, because I think about Ozark as a track, and just what I've seen from sprint car racing and some of Brandon Robinson's strengths on these clay half miles. I think Brandon, to me, is the favorite to win at Ozark on that finale night. So if Brandon can come in maybe within that 5 to 6, 7 point range on Jared, if they're close to equal on wins and a tiebreaker could potentially factor in, I don't know. But I see Brandon being the favorite to win the finale of the Ozark. So he just has to stay within striking distance and try to get the better of Jared finally on one of these miles. He hasn't been able to, in a few years, but Brandon was fast at Springfield last year, and we'll see what he can do, and see if they've gotten some of the bugs worked out that they had on that bike when they raced at DuQuoin. Third in points and the last rider to beat Jared Mees on a mile, that's Breyer Bauman. And Breyer did it at the season finale last year on that KTM. It's kind of wild to say that he could win this championship. He hasn't probably had the year that he was hoping for. They've been decent, but they've definitely had some dips, and they're still trying to build that program for sure. But for Breyer to still be right there within striking distance of this championship is just a testament to how much that team has persevered through the year. Breyer last year at Springfield on the KTM was the only person who seemed to pose a real challenge to Mees throughout the main events on both days, and then obviously getting the better of him on that second day. So Breyer's, he didn't have the best result at DuQuoin. He just missed the podium, so he was 4th there. He was mixing it up there with the Yamahas of Dallas Daniels and Brandon Price. They tried to work together to close on Mees, but just weren't able to make any ground to really come within striking distance to try to draft the number 1 at DuQuoin. But Breyer's coming off of a win at Peoria. He won his heat race in Rapid City, but then fell back to 9th in that main event, so that hurts. But he got a runner up there on the streets of Sturgis behind JD Beach. When you look at Breyer's results on a KTM on the mile, the first time he hopped on that, not the best result, got a 7th place finish, but from there, he's been on or just off the podium with a 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 1st, and a 4th. That gives you a 3.5 average finish. But Breyer's going to, again, just like Brandon, being 3rd or 5th ain't going to cut it when Jared shows up. We can pretty much pencil in Jared on the box, and so these guys are going to have to get ahead of that number 1. They're going to have to, just stay with him throughout those main events. Maybe those 3 guys work together and can stay lined up and check out and sell it amongst themselves. It would be awesome to see these 3 really just duel it all the way to the last round at Lake Ozark. So yeah, we'll see what Breyer's able to do on that KTM. If you're one of these top 3 riders, if you win out, you're the champion. Just do that. Yeah, it's simple as that, right? Just win 3 races in a row at the best level of the class. No big deal, right? I'm very interested to see what Estenson does. I don't, we still got Dallas Daniels on the pre-entry list. JD had not agreed to run Springfield at the time we talked with him on the Sideways podcast. He's got his Moto America commitments. And while Moto America is off the weekend of Springfield, that could potentially open the door we'll see if Dallas is fit to race. If I were him, I don't know that I would try to rush back. He is only 20 points back, but that seems like it's just a little too much to really risk furthering injuring that broken leg that he's coming back from. And it seems like it's probably better to just stay back and heal up and come back full strength and swinging with a vengeance next year to start the 2025 season. But Dallas is one of the only two riders to beat Jared on a mile in the past few years and past 3 years. And he got that win a Red Mile and was able to back it up again later in 2022. But since then, Jared's gotten the better of Dallas on every single mile. So I know Dallas wants to beat Jared Mees one more time on those miles, and he can come back. And, who knows? Dallas is a special talent, and he's put together some of the most impressive rides of his career during this year. And so it just makes that injury so devastating because Dallas looked like he was on his way to a championship. So if Dallas can't compete and JD's able to come back and suit up once again, I mean, he's the hottest rider on the circuit. Since being a super sub for Estenson, he got a runner-up finish at Peoria and is coming off of back-to-back wins. The only thing JD needs to complete his career slam, the OG Grand Slam, is that mile victory. And when you look at JD on miles in the past, he's been up in the hunt. He's been, kind of just inside the top 5, got a podium as well over the past 2 years. At Springfield last year, he had that 4th and 6th place finish. And both Estenson bikes just didn't seem to have the pace that Breyer's KTM and Jared's Indian had at Springfield last year. Being there in the stands and watching, those two were just superior to everybody. But this year, that Yamaha has looked so good, and Dallas was able to be with he was able to see Jared there at DuQuoin, but Jared just, like we've said over and over again, that Jared was able to comfortably be ahead. So Estenson's definitely going to want to have somebody on that Yamaha because right now, they're leading the manufacturer standings by just a little bit over Indian, and that's going to be quite a battle to watch. It's kind of something that I've overlooked all season long, but the manufacturer championship is coming down to the wire, and Indian wants to go out on top and be the brand that's won every single year in this class, and Yamaha would love nothing better than to steal one of those and take it home in Indian's final year and send them off as a runner-up. So we'll see how those manufacturer championships come in to the play throughout the end of this season. Some potential spoilers, guys who could get up in the mix. I feel like it's going to be hard to get up there and beat Jared, Breyer, Brandon, or whoever's operating those Estenson bikes. But we did see Brandon Price pull out a very impressive run at DuQuoin. He got on the podium there. We've also seen Declan Bender's last 2 starts. How good has he been on the Indian? He got that 6th on DuQuoin, and I think Declan must bench press 500 pounds to be able to hold on to that Indian how he was when it was bucking across the line there at DuQuoin. And then Declan gets a 4th place finish in Rapid City. He wasn't running the Sturgis TT, but a very impressive run. Declan and Trevor Bruner, those last few laps at Rapid City were so fast. In fact, the last 5 laps of that race, one of those 2 guys was the fastest bike on track, and they were charging through the field, both getting a top 5 finish on that day. So, Declan definitely opened a lot of eyes at Springfield last year in the singles class when he was up there mixing it up with the best in that and putting a stamp on his Rookie of the Year in the singles class. So, Declan coming back to the mile, we'll see what he's able to do with that Indian with Johnny Goat's team, and maybe they can have a nice strong into to their campaign on the Indian. Of course, Jared Vanderkoy's coming off his first podium of the year at the Sturgis TT. Can't count him out anytime. We'll see what Jared's able to do when they come to Springfield over the weekend and how they close out the season at Ozark. Davis Fisher, he podiumed at Springfield last year. He had a top 5 in DuQuoin. We'll see if Davis can maybe stay with the leading group and mix it up and contest for his first mile win. Obviously, Bruner, we mentioned earlier, he's looking to secure that Rookie of the Year battle, and he's still got an outside shot at closing in on Vanderkoy for the top 5 in points. Jared's got, it's 31 points from 5th to 8th in points right now. So we'll see how that all shakes out toward the end of the year for bragging rights amongst those guys. This Brandon Price still in the mix there, as well as Vanderkoy, Fisher, and Trevor Bruner. That's what we're looking at with the Twins class. We'll go probably deeper dive on our preview with this. Don't want to be too redundant and say too much because Colby and I are going to look into this on the Sideways podcast as well. As we look into the singles class, of course, we got to talk about Cody Kopp, who's just put together an absolutely stunning year. Cody won the opener at Springfield last year and was able to clinch his championship. And in Cody's championship years, he's clinched the title early. And he's definitely going to be looking to do that again at Springfield this year. While I don't see him doing it on day one, it would not surprise me at all for Cody to, again, just end up on the podium, first or second, and be able to bring home his 3rd consecutive AFT Singles Championship. Cody was runner-up at DuQuoin after that epic charge through the field. When he lost his chain on the siding lap and coming from the back all the way to the front, leading by halfway and mixing it up with those guys in the front of the pack. Cody's put together probably the best year of his career. And he mentioned at Daytona earlier in the year that he felt better on these bikes than he did in his Red Bull Championship years. And he's really shown it. So after 13 rounds, you've got 325 available points, and Cody's gotten 289 points. So he's got almost 89% of the available points that you can get in a season so far. He's got an average finish of 1.77. He's only been off the podium once, and that was a fourth place finish, so just missed the podium. And if he's able to finish second both days at Springfield, he'll be able to clinch that championship mathematically, regardless if it's Chase Sadoff or Tom Drain winning. Cody's already got his 6 wins on the year, and even if Cody's not quite champion when they go to Lake Ozark, I would put him as probably the favorite to win on a track like that. Cody's just been spectacular on every surface this year. He's always on the box. He's always up front in the mix. And I wouldn't be shocked to see them pick up another win at Springfield. The front three of this singles class, they're going to be hard to beat. They prove to be strong every single track we go to. I mentioned on Sideways podcast, I thought this year we would have, probably 6 or 7 winners. But Chase and Cody and Tom have proven to be just elite on these 450s this year. And Cody's just been a pleasure to watch when he's chasing this championship. It's probably the last year we're going to see him on a 450. Kind of feel for Chase Sadoff. Normally, with what he's putting up this season, it would be a championship year. Chase has got 3 wins. He's never been outside the top 5. And he's got an average finish of 2.77. Those numbers sound like championship winning numbers, but he's just had to deal with that pesky number 1 KTM of Cody Cobb, who is just, like we talked about, put together a truly spectacular season. Chase, however, is riding quite a bit of momentum in the state of Illinois. He hasn't lost in the state of Illinois in 2024. He picked up the win at DuQuoin and backed it up, taking one from Cody there in Peoria. So Chase finally able to get that first mile win after we talked about him being so close so many times in 2023. And Chase was able to salvage a 4th place finish there on the Sturgis TT after a really rough, ugly day throughout on that track. But Chase is able to bring that in, and he looked so fast at Springfield last year. He's going to want to definitely move up a step on the podium there and take home another win. And he's in that, super tight battle with Tom Drain for second, only 6 points separating those two, and they've been real back and forth and really gone at it this year. Chase probably feels like maybe one slipped away from him there in Rapid City, where he was super fast all day, but just got kind of stuck battling in the pack, and Tom put together an amazing ride there in Rapid City to pull away and take that win. It was Tom's 4th of the year. So that's probably hurting a little bit for Chase, but he just needs to go out there and do what he did at DuQuoin. He was so strong and seemed like he had it, had one of the bikes to beat there, and was a pleasure to watch. That race at DuQuoin, the singles guys have put on some amazing racing this year. They always do in that 450 class, but those Bridgeport and DuQuoin main events especially stand out in my mind. I really love to see what these singles guys are able to do. And, we've got 3 more rounds with this big 3 in the 2024 season. When you look at Tom Drain, based on trends, you would think he's probably the favorite to win Springfield. Of the last 3 rounds, he's gotten first, third. So does that mean he's on track to get another win and pick up another mile win in his career? On the miles last year, he was on the podium every time. He got 3 wins, a second and a third. But earlier this year in DuQuoin, he was up in the mix, and Cody put that move on him going into 3 and 4 on the last lap, and it kind of shoved Tom wide. He wasn't able to get the charge that he needed coming off of turn 4. He had to settle for 4th. So, what a horrible finish. But when you're dealing with Cody and Chase, those finishes off the box have really hurt Tom in his championship this year. He had a crash in Daytona. He had that crash in Chico that he was able to, bounce back and get 6th. But those two really looming large on him and what's kept him from being right there to really hound Cody for the title this year. It is still an amazing season for Tom. He's got his 4 wins and is pretty much right where he was sort of last year as far as chasing Cody for the championship. In 2023, coming into the final 3 rounds, he was 39 points back, and now he's 40 back. But I'd say Thomas had a much more impressive year this year. We were concerned or we're not sure how he would perform on short tracks, and he's really proved to just have it together all around. I thought he might be a little stronger there on the Sturgis TT. I was very surprised to see him finish 3rd. I thought he would be up there mixing it up with Cody all day, but as we talked about, Cody was just the man that day on the Sturgis TT and really put a stamp on one of the other goals that he had for the season in getting that Grand Slam. So curious to see how Drain and Chase sort of sort out that battle for second in the points as it stands right now, and if any of them can maybe put a little pressure on Cody and try to extend this into the final round of the season at Lake Ozark. Other competitors, you can't count out the Turner bikes when you go to a mile. And Trent Lowe's going to be looking for redemption because he was up in that mix, led some laps at DuQuoin, and then wasn't able to finish the race. The bike quits on him coming off of turn 2 with about 2 to go, and just heartbreaker for Trent, who's really had an unfortunate year. And this stretch that we're on right now, Trent's finished outside the top 5 in 4 consecutive races, so he needs some momentum to come back on his side and really put a more positive note on the end of this year. So, about the best he can really hope for in points is for 4th place. And, he's going to be gunning for that and trying to get everything he can out of that Turner Racing Honda. He does have a mile win to his name. He picked up a mile win in 2023. His Springfield results left a little bit to be desired last year with an 8th and a 6th. So we'll see what Trent's able to accomplish on that Turner Honda. We don't know what his plans are going to be for next year. So curious to see how Trent's able to fare on these miles. I definitely expect him to be right up there and battling with him. And if the bike can hold up, I'd love to see how Trent plays his strategy and if he's able to potentially be another winner in the singles class this year and break up the Big Three's dominance of it on top of the box. Trent's teammate, Evan Renshaw, currently leads the Rookie of the Year standings. And Evan was up there in that lead group for a little while before he and Terrence Santero and Travis Fenton sort of lost pace with the leaders and fell back and sort of settled that fight outside the top 5 amongst themselves at DuQuoin. But looking forward to see what Evan can do. Evan's been kind of stuck in the magic number 8 lately. He was 8th at DuQuoin, he's 8th in points, and he's finished 8th in 3 of his last 4 starts. But he did get a top 5 the last time the series was in Illinois. Granted, that was Peoria, that was a TT, completely different from what we're getting on the mile. But those bikes are fast, and Evan is a super talented rider, and it shows leading this Rookie of the Year battle. He's still got a shot to sort of take over or mix it up in there with that fight for 6th on back in the points. And I would love to see Evan get a strong result there on Springfield Mile those 2 days and bring home put a cap on his rookie year. Evan Kelleher, he was in the top 5 at DuQuoin and really put on an amazing ride, an impressive performance there. The ride of his career so far. So Kelleher, it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to do coming into Springfield. Is he able to replicate that? Can he stay up with the leaders on the mile and be sort of that dark horse in there that really breaks up the party as well? That was exciting for Kelleher out there. So curious to see what the Evans can do when they show up at the Springfield Mile. Just a couple other names to give a shout out to. Obviously, Terrence Santero getting his career best, that runner-up finish in the Sturgis TT. Super happy for Terrence to accomplish that, and what a ride he put on that day. And Terrence had a solid little run here recently with getting that top 5 finish in Peoria, the runner-up there at the Sturgis TT. He was 6th at DuQuoin. That was his career best on the mile. So Terrence put together a really strong performance here and closed the gap with James Ott getting injured and not making it to the TT. Terrence really climbed up and is kind of breathing down James Ott's neck there for that 5th place in the singles points. It was really fun having Terrence on the Sideways podcast. Appreciate his time. I don't know how many times I can plug that podcast in one show, but when you look at Terrence, ever since April when the series hit Texas, he's only been outside the top 10 in one race, and that was his crash at Lima, which he spoke about as well. So Terrence put together a really strong year once we left the Southeast and put together some really good rides. I'm curious to see what that team's able to do when they hit the mile. He seems pretty confident in his mile package to hang with the leaders out there. And, he was up in the mix at DuQuoin as well before a little mistake going into 1 and 2. And that's what sort of created that separation between that lead pack and then Terrence, Pettin, Renshaw, and some of the rest. James Ott, he had to sit out the Sturgis TT after a crash earlier in the week, and it really hampered the momentum that James had been building. He'd had 4 top 5s in his 5 previous starts before having to sit that out. He was a podium finish at DuQuoin, looked really strong there. Was 7th and 8th at Springfield last year, so he'll be wanting to improve on that if he's able to race. I believe James is healed up enough to be able to compete there in Springfield, and curious to see if they can build on the momentum that they got there in DuQuoin with that strong run. James was up in the lead pack and charging to the front. That was cool to see him up there fighting for a win there in DuQuoin, and excited to see what he's able to do when the series goes to Springfield. So guys, thanks for checking this out. Thanks for still supporting us. Thanks for dealing with my ring light on my face all day. Thanks for again, supporting this channel, and please make sure you check out Sideways Podcast with Colby Carlisle and myself. Colby is putting in so much work into that. I am amazed at just and truly inspired by the dedication that he's put into that, with taking on so much of the editing and booking and recording, and his knowledge of the sport, and just being able to have those conversations with riders in this sport. It's really surreal to me, as I'm still just a kid at heart and a fan of everybody in the pits, and it's so awesome to be able to chat with some of you all on that podcast, and look forward to what that can become. If you're going to Springfield and you're going in early, don't forget the Steve Nace promotions team. They've got their amateur race on Thursday night. They've got the All-Star race on Friday night there at the short track before the double header on the mile for Jared Meese Promotions and American Flat Track. Also, if you're up in that area and you're a car racing fan, I went to Fairbury, Illinois last year after the first day of the mile, and not trying to necessarily plug car racing here, but Fairbury is a phenomenal car racing track, and it's about an hour away from Springfield. So if you need something to do Saturday night, you haven't got quite enough of your racing fixed on two wheels, head up to Fairbury and check out some late model racing up there, or you can just, if you're a Flow subscriber, you can check it out there. For me, this next week coming up is going to be, by the time you're seeing this, I'm probably up in New York for the U.S. Open tennis tournament. And then my broadcast commitments, we're going to one of my favorite tracks on the World of Outlaws circuit. We get to go to Houston Speedway to make up the High Bank Nationals that got flooded out from June. They'll be racing over Labor Day weekend there. So excited to see the World of Outlaws back at Houston Speedway and to be part of that broadcast. That the team with Dirt Vision, I'm incredibly thankful for the opportunity that they've given me, and thank God for the opportunity to be part of that team. It's truly spectacular to be involved in motorsports and to be able to do that. And then to talk about Flat Track with you all, there's a lot to be grateful for. Again, support all those that are talking about this sport, that are promoting it. Tanks Laughing Podcast was the biggest inspiration for me to start this, and was a big inspiration for Colby and I to get the Sideways Podcast going. Of course, Scotty Dubler with Off the Groove, and Sammy Halbert has been doing his lives on YouTube as well, following his journey. Sammy's heading back to Europe after being the Adventure Tracker GOAT right now. He's 1 for 1, 100% on Adventure Trackers. So Sammy's back to Europe to chase that FIM championship. It's been fun to follow along with his videos on that. If you're able to subscribe to his OnlyFans, he's doing a lot of exclusive content on that as well. But yeah, please support these podcasts and these shows that are talking about flat track racing. And we want to grow this sport. I know I've had a little bit of criticism, and I've had a weird sort of relationship with this sport this year, but I do still love it. And I want to be a fan for the rest of my life. I've been a fan for almost 35 years now, and would love another 35 of following flat track racing and seeing it get back to a level of prominence. So rooting for the sport. I'm rooting for every single one of y'all that watch that. I hope you all are doing well. Hope you're healthy. Have a blessed life. Have an amazing Labor Day weekend. Have a great time if you're going to Springfield, or just have a great time if you're hanging out with your friends and family. Make sure, I guess I can steal a quote from Big Brother. Been kind of hooked on that as well. Love one another, and we'll talk to you all very, very soon. Take care.